We're inside T-minus 14 minutes. Everything is still looking good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon, 49 minutes and 2 seconds after the hour. Falcon 9 began propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. Loading of the RP-1 fuel onto stage 2 is complete. Fuel loading is continuing on the first stage. We're over half full, and it'll finish at T-minus 6 minutes. The densified liquid oxygen loading is continuing on the first stage, and we began loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage a few minutes ago. The liquid oxygen loading will wrap up T-minus 3 minutes on the first stage, about T-minus 2 minutes on the second stage. Checkouts of the thrust vector controllers, what we call TVC wiggles, are coming up, along with throttle valve checkouts on the engines. That's where we move the engines a little bit, make sure the hydraulics are ready to go.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Mission and liftoff. Godspeed, Endeavour and Crew 2.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Endeavour launches once again. 4 astronauts from 3 countries on Crew 2, now making their way to the one and only International Space Station. The vehicle is pitching downrange. 9 Merlin engines on the first stage, providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Hearing good calls on first stage performance so far.
We are T plus 30 seconds into the second rotational crew mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9. Falcon 9 will be throttling down the 9 Merlin engines shortly here in preparation for maximum dynamic pressure. And there's that call out for the throttle down. Maximum dynamic pressure, max Q, is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees throughout ascent. So throttling down does help us pass. Throttling down helps us pass through this period, which should be coming here shortly.
Max Q.
There's our call out that we have just passed through max Q.
Stage 1, throttle up.
And
1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
All right, 1 Bravo is the second abort mode on the first stage. The first stage continues to fire for 2 minutes, 35 seconds. 1.5 minutes into today's flight. Falcon 9 now traveling at more than 1,500 miles an hour.
MVAC engine chill started.
All right, the engine chill for the second stage single Merlin engine has started. About 30 more seconds of the first stage firing to bring our 4 astronauts into orbit.
Now from here, coming up in about 20-some seconds, we're going to have 3 major milestones. We'll have shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines. We're beginning to throttle them down. We will then get stage separation.
Throttle down.
And then we will get ignition of the second stage engine to propel Dragon and the Falcon 9 second stage into orbit.
Two Alpha.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
Confirmed.
Acquisition signal right. Ignition.
And we have ignition of the second stage. You see the green flash of that T-TEB fluid. The expansion nozzle on the second stage Merlin vacuum glowing that bright red that we like to see. Good performance on the second stage so far.
And on the left side of your screen, we saw the exhaust of the second stage engine streaming past the first stage as the grid fins are coming out. We also briefly had a view of the lights of Central Florida in the background. Currently, the first stage is continuing to coast up to apogee. It's unpowered. It'll reach a peak height and then begin to descend back down toward the Earth's atmosphere, where it will light 3 engines to slow down in preparation for what will be a landing burn on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see the grid fins are deployed. Right now, the first stage,
Dragon,
pulsing.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
We're pulsing the thrusters.
Signal Bermuda.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
And we hear a call out from the crew, nominal trajectory. So we're beginning to move the first stage into position so it can do the entry burn.
Four minutes, 15 seconds into today's flight. Second stage propelling our 4 astronauts up the eastern seaboard. We'll continue to fire. It's a 6-minute burn to deliver the astronauts into orbit. We'll wait for a cue for good orbital insertion after that. Meanwhile, we will be hearing check-ins on the vehicle's trajectory and performance, as well as check-ins with some of the ground stations as it passes over throughout the 6 minutes of the second stage firing.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
Getting good views of both the first and second stage from the onboard cameras.
Acquisition of signal bus.
The New Hampshire tracking station has acquired the second stage telemetry signal. Meanwhile, the first stage has reached apogee, and it's now beginning to descend from a height. It's currently about 167 kilometers up, and in a few minutes we will get the entry burn of the second stage, of the first stage.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
Right on cue, those check-ins on the second stage performance. Once a minute, everything's looking good on that second stage.
Propulsion is nominal.
Stage 2 continues to climb. The vehicle now exceeding 8,000 miles an hour at an altitude of about 124 miles.
And just about 1 minute from now, we will begin the entry burn of the first stage. That'll consist of lighting the center engine, and then shortly afterwards, 2 more engines for a 3-engine burn to slow down the first stage in preparation for entering the Earth's atmosphere.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
Another check-in, and the crew confirming they're hearing the same thing. The vehicle exceeding, or about to exceed, about 10,000 miles per hour.
Meanwhile, first stage down at 90 kilometers, getting ready to relight 3 engines for the entry burn.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
We've got the center engine ignition, and there come the 2 side engines. Now this entry burn will last about 29 seconds. It's going to significantly slow down the vehicle in preparation for hitting the denser part of the Earth's atmosphere. Entry burn complete. We're down below 35 kilometers, continuing to look good on the first stage, heading to the Atlantic Ocean for a landing on the drone ship.
While second stage is less than a minute away from cutoff.
Stage 2 in terminal guidance.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
Shannon called out at the back end of stage 2. A few seconds until cutoff.
MVAC shutdown.
Dragon SpaceX launch escape system disarmed.
Launch escape system disarmed. Copy.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbit insertion.
Copy. Nominal orbital insertion.
Right, the Falcon 9 second stage has done its job, delivering our 4 crew into orbit.
You hear the applause here in Hawthorne. We're waiting to get a video signal back from the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. And the view from the onboard camera, we saw it just briefly. It looks like first stage on the drone ship. Getting views of the Dragon trunk. So the first stage is on the drone ship, successfully landed. And more importantly, second stage is in a nominal orbit with the Dragon spacecraft getting ready for some important events coming up, Gary.
That's right. About 2 more minutes. The Dragon and the second stage of the Falcon 9 will be in a coast phase. It'll take that long until the spacecraft separates from the Falcon 9. Of course, both now in a nominal orbit. It's great to see some of the views of the Earth as it passes by over the North Atlantic Ocean. All right, we're getting shots of the crew in orbit. I'm looking for that 0G indicator. Can't seem to see it in this shot, but we have a minute to go until we have spacecraft separation. Dragon traveling at nearly 17,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 124 miles. Again, the 4-person crew of Endeavour is in orbit right now. Less than 30 seconds until we have spacecraft separation. Ten seconds to spacecraft separation. We should hear words from the core here in Mission Control Hawthorne once we have successful separation. Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon, SpaceX, happens to wish you a great rest of your trip. Say hi to the crew of Dragon who's waiting for us and let them know your rocket is home safe. Thanks for flying our first flight proven, crewed Falcon 9. Sierra side, Crew 2.
Thank you very much. We're great. It's glad to be back in space for all of us, and we'll send our regards to CREW-1 when we get there. Thanks.
.270 meters in closing. Crew Dragon expected to converge with waypoint 1 directly in front of the International Space Station in less than 5 minutes. You can see the views right over the shoulders of Commander Shane Kimbrough and pilot Megan MacArthur. Kimbrough on the left, MacArthur on the right from that view.
From this view from the International Space Station, you can see what we were mentioning earlier, where Dragon was below the station. You could see that previously when it had Earth in the background. Now it is almost adjacent, or almost in the same orbit as the International Space Station, as it's making its way to the docking axis at waypoint 1. Now this maneuver from below the station to in front of the docking port is almost complete, just a few minutes away.
Getting great views from all around, from the station side, from the Dragon side. The outline of the station you see on the displays inside Crew Dragon is in line with the position of where Dragon is relative to the International Space Station. It's almost at the docking axis, about 2.5 minutes to go until it converges with waypoint 1.
And as a reminder, Dragon is flying autonomously, so they aren't using those display panels to fly Dragon. They're just using them to monitor each step of the way. So the crew is basically just patiently waiting until they dock with the station.
Now seeing Dragon in a better view, a lot more clear now that it's only 240 meters away. You can see the nose cone clearly deployed, extended towards the space-facing side or zenith side.
A really good zoomed-in view, and you could almost make out those 4 bulkhead thrusters on the forward portion of the Dragon capsule.
There you go. The Cronus is adjusting the aperture of the station cameras.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Approach 1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly. Dragon will continue to waypoint 2, with the additional lighting assessment occurring at 110 meters, as previously noted. For awareness, if sunlight results in the loss of the Dragonite geofilters, Dragon will autonomously retreat back to waypoint 1, remaining on closed loop control using the time of flight filters. I'll copy.
We are in a handover period, so we may have missed a call as we were switching from Teeter's satellites. We're looking at about 20 seconds to go until we converge with waypoint 1. There's going to be an approach burn maneuver using the Draco thrusters. That's called approach 1, and that'll move Dragon from right in front of the docking axis, 220 meters away, and start moving in, closing in to waypoint 2, just 20 meters away from the docking axis. Of course, they'll be monitoring along the way.
We did hear the Corps mention that they are going to have a checkpoint to make sure that there isn't too much sunlight on the space station, which will prevent Dragon from docking. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously back out and wait until the sunlight has cleared to ensure a good docking with the space station. Because this is all autonomous, it uses some visual cameras to align with the docking port. So it's really important that we don't have that sunlight getting in the way.
Section over on the big loop, sound check.
SpaceX has you loud and clear on the big loop. Helm me.
Loud and clear. Your last call, we copied most of it, but you cut out towards the end there. I'm not sure if there's anything important for us.
Copy. I'm going to repeat the end of the call. We did have a TDRS handover. Just for awareness, following the lighting assessment, if we continue but sunlight results in a loss of the Dragon Eye geofilters, Dragon Eye will autonomously retreat back to waypoint 1, still on closed loop control using the time of flight filters. How copy?
Okay, we copied all. Thank you very much for repeating.
No problem, Shane. And for awareness, the C2V2 link reconfiguration has been completed.
Copy, C2V2 complete.
There, the Corps just reiterated that they will be checking to make sure that the sunlight is not in the way of the visual systems between Dragon and the space station. If that does happen, Dragon will autonomously retract and wait until we do get some good visual views for these systems to dock with each other. So
that's right. Crew Dragon resilience actually coming into view a little bit clearer now from the cameras aboard Dragon. Dock to the zenith port.
Yeah, that was on the upper portion of the screen.
That's right. Now again, to reiterate, Dragon has passed waypoint 1, 220 meters in front of the station, executed a burn maneuver to go ahead and move in, so we're in approach 1, and it's heading towards waypoint 2. Now inside the keep-out sphere. It's currently in the process of extending its soft capture ring that'll be used to dock to the international docking adapter of the forward port. We're monitoring the visual systems of Dragon. It would execute an automatic retreat if the sun was interfering with the optical systems as it makes its way towards an approach. We're at about 150 meters away from the station.
And we have such a great camera view here. You can really see the detail on Dragon. Again, those 4 bulkhead thrusters. You could almost read the logo, the Dragon logo on the side of the vehicle.
That's right. We'll get even better views as it makes its way even closer to make contact and capture with the space station.
There it is.
Yeah, based on the trajectory here, we may even anticipate a capture a little bit earlier than anticipating. We were looking at about 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. It might be at maybe closer to 2:07 p.m. The features of the space station coming into view very clearly.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the detail there, and as you mentioned, the CREW-1 Dragon.
This is SpaceX station on the big loop. Procedure review complete, ready for docking.
Houston copies.
All right, that was confirmation from Victor Glover aboard the International Space Station. From the space station side, he is go for docking. The soft capture ring itself is fully extended. We're 115 meters in closing.
Looking at your screen, the port that we are going to be docking with is directly in the middle of the screen, that circular area on the International Space Station.
Station Houston on 2 for Ike regarding SSC 17 and D2DM. We are seeing some strange configurations on the video, and we would like to close and restart that. We can take care of that from the ground if you would like. Absolutely. If you're seeing nominal, that works for us.
Okay, so Victor Glover aboard the station still has...
And Dragon, SpaceX soft capture ring extension is complete. Additionally, we did beat the sunlight for the Dragon Eye filters, so we are not going to command a hold.
All
right, so that's great news. We passed the 110-meter checkpoint that the ground operators were referencing, making sure the sun wasn't interfering with the optical sensors, the Dragon Eye, that are part of the guidance and navigation and control system aboard Dragon. We passed that check mark. We're good to go. We beat the sun there. So we're now inside 80 meters and closing. Dragon will pause at 20 meters. That's designated as waypoint 2 to conduct a go, no-go poll for the readiness on both the Dragon side and the International Space Station side, making sure everyone is good for docking. If we are go, we expect to dock during this pass over an orbital daytime. Expected in less than 20 minutes. Some of the features there, you can see a lot of the visiting vehicles on board station. At the bottom is a Russian Soyuz vehicle that delivered crew to the International Space Station. Just in front of that, or actually above that, is the Crew Dragon Resilience, docked to the Zenith port. Once Crew Dragon Endeavour arrives, there will be 2 Crew Dragons attached to the space station.
In this view from Crew Dragon looking at the International Space Station, it looks like it's this very slow and steady movement, but in reality they're moving at 17,500 miles per hour.
The rendezvous operations are absolutely incredible. You can sort of see the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft as well, some of the ultraflex solar arrays coming into view a little bit clearly.
And you could see that CREW-1 Dragon vehicle on the top of your screen. Once Crew 2 docks to the International Space Station, we will have 2 Crew Dragons docked at the same time for the first time.
That view right there was truly a representation truly of an international cooperation there. The U.S.-built Node 2 is where the Dragon will be docking today. It was flanked by the European Columbus module and the Japanese GEM.
On the big loop, visors down.
SpaceX copies. Visors are down. We may enter into a hold at waypoint 2. We are still awaiting ground go for final approach.
Never copies.
The detail of this camera view is pretty incredible. Here from the International Space Station, watching Crew Dragon as it is slowly approaching.
And as expected, Dragon holding at waypoint 2. It's at about 20 meters right in front of the docking axis.
And if you're just now joining us, we are just waiting for a confirmation for go for docking. Currently holding Dragon at waypoint 2. And again, it looks like Dragon is just paused and not even moving, but again, as we just mentioned, both the space station and Crew Dragon are actually moving at approximately 17,500 miles per hour. So it's pretty incredible how it can hold these speeds so that it looks like they are just completely paused.
That's right. Teams on the ground, both from the station side in Mission Control Houston and Mission Control Hawthorne, just checking and verifying all systems are go to proceed with docking.
And when we do begin docking, there will be 2 portions of this. There will be a soft capture followed by a hard capture. The soft capture will be a soft capture ring that basically just connects the Crew Dragon to the space station to enable the hard capture, which will be 12 hooks that will attach Dragon to the station.
Again, we're standing by the International Space Station, flying over the Indian Ocean now, just south of the Indian border. It's heading on a southeasterly course just south of Australia and should cross over the Terminator line into the Pacific Ocean into an orbital nighttime. The expectation is for Dragon to depart here from waypoint 2 and proceed on with docking ahead of orbital nighttime to beat the sun.
can see this camera moving around. Again, this is controlled from the ground from Mission Control Houston. And they're maneuvering this camera around so we can just get a more detailed view of the Crew-2 Dragon Endeavour patiently waiting, docking to the International Space Station.
Dragon on its second flight, about to dock to the forward end of the International Space Station for the second time.
And Station and Endeavour on the big loop. Ike, we are not able to recover that video for the D2DM, so you can close that window, and we should be ready to press into final approach shortly.
Station copies.
You did hear that call out speak out to Ike. Ike is actually referring to Victor Glover. That is just his nickname.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground is now go for final approach. Upon confirmation of crew readiness for final approach, we will enable the approach. Please confirm crew readiness, and a reminder, once Dragon is inside the crew hands-off point, retreat and breakout are no longer permitted.
Crew is ready for final approach.
And got some good words that the crew is ready for the docking to the International Space Station. They no longer will have control of any aborts. If there is an abort needed, it will have to be done by the Dragon autonomously.
And on the big loop, monitor per steps 3 and 4 and 1.104.
Station copy.
Again, we are now moving into the CHOP, which is the crew hands-off point. As I was mentioning earlier, if there is an abort, it will need to be done autonomously by Dragon.
All right, we did get confirmation. Approach 2 has been initiated. So Dragon now making its way inside the 20-meter hold point at about 18 meters and closing. Final approach of Endeavour to dock with the International Space Station has started. Docking expected in about 3.5 minutes from now.
And you can see on your screen as Crew Dragon slowly approaches towards that port for docking.
Sorry, we're 13 meters and closing, making a slow and methodical approach to the docking port. That's on the forward end of the International Space Station, that international docking adapter where Crew Dragon Endeavour has docked once before.
Meters.
Copy, 10 meters.
With that call out was Crew Dragon is just 10 meters away from the International Space Station as it continues its approach for docking. Again, docking will occur in two phases. There will be a soft capture followed by a hard capture, and what that hard capture means is 12 physical hooks will connect the Dragon to the space station.
Great views. Dragon just 6 meters away as the station and Dragon fly in tandem 263 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean in the background.
5 meters.
We're 5 meters and closing.
Copy 5 meters.
Really start to see the detail on Dragon there as it is closing in on docking.
That's right, 2.5 meters, 30 seconds. Crew hands off point was called out.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop, soft capture confirmed.
Copy, soft capture confirmed.
Great news with that call out. That soft capture is confirmed.
That's right, that soft capture time, 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 4:08 a.m. Eastern. The station and Dragon connected 264 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean. Endeavour connected to International Space Station for the second time.
And there are still a few steps to complete before Dragon is securely attached.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop, soft capture ring retraction in progress.
That's good. The ring retraction is happening. Ring retraction happening as expected. And after the ring retracts, 12 hooks will latch, 6 at a time, to perform a hard capture, and will officially mate Dragon to the International Space Station.
Got this really awesome view of Dragon as it is connected to the port, currently making progress on hard capture.
Soft capture ring retraction does take some time. It is continuing at its anticipated speed. Things are looking good. Again, this is the first in a series of steps to officially mate Dragon to the station. If you're just joining us, we heard the call out for soft capture confirmed at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 4:08 a.m. Eastern time. Station and Dragon were 264 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean at the time of contact and capture. We're still in the process of retracting the soft capture ring and anticipating proceeding with the hard capture sequence, where 12 hooks will drive to officially mate Dragon with the International Space Station's International Docking Adapter at the forward port. Crew Dragon Endeavour docked to that forward port for the second time.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ring retraction is complete. Docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
Endeavour copies off.
If you're just now joining us, as you can see on your screen, Crew Dragon has made contact with the International Space Station. And we're currently in progress of...
Endeavour and Station, MCS is configured, proceeding with hook driving.
Endeavour copies.
Station copies.
Great timing there. This is now the beginning of the hard capture sequence. This is where 12 hooks will latch between Dragon and the space station, 6 hooks at a time. This will take a few minutes to complete.
That's right, that MCS is just configuring the International Space Station's attitude control. It needed to be configured differently between a soft capture and hard capture sequence. So now that that's been confirmed, they can go ahead and press to drive the 12 hooks needed to confirm a hard capture. To reiterate, the Dragon had contact and capture with the space station at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern. Space Station and Dragon crossing over the Terminator line just south of Australia, about to head over the South Pacific Ocean. Start seeing the views of Dragon get a little bit dimmer as we still undergo the hard capture sequence. All right, again, we're still undergoing the hard capture sequence. There's 12 hooks that drive to officially mate Dragon to the International Space Station, 6 of them driving currently. Station attitude configured to support the hard capture sequence, now operating on control moment gyros to maintain attitude control during the hard capture sequence. All right, and we have confirmation. The first set of hooks, all 6 have been driven. They look good. The second set are driving and are looking good at the anticipated speed. Halfway there.
This will take just a couple more minutes for hard capture to complete. As a reminder, after hard capture is complete, they do still have some more steps that they need to go through in order to ensure that the space station and Dragon are safe for crew ingress. There will be the hatch opening as the crew on board Dragon as well as the station will be walking through some procedures prior to ingress of the crew on the International Space Station. But once they do ingress on the station, there will be a welcome ceremony.
Again, half of the hard capture hooks have been driven and locked into place. The second set of 6 hooks, 12 total, 6 of them driving.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Hard capture is complete. You are go to open visors.
Copy, hard capture complete. Opening visors.
All right. Crew Dragon Endeavour officially made it to the International Space Station. That dynamic period of the docking phase is complete. The crew inside Dragon have been wearing their suits just as an extra precaution, but they can go ahead and pull up their visors. It's going to be some time until the hatches themselves are open between Dragon and the International Space Station. Still some things to configure on that side. The vestibule on the International Docking Adapter that separates the hatches of Dragon and the International Space Station. That's been exposed to the vacuum of space and has had the sun shining on it periodically. So when repressurizing the vestibule to equal the pressure inside the space station.
Hard capture complete. Welcome to ISS. We are so excited to have you aboard.
Thanks, Shannon. We're glad to be here. We'll see you all in a few minutes.
International Space Station Commander Shannon Walker welcoming the crew. Now Crew 2 officially made it to the International Space Station. Again, it's going to be some time until they come in, but the commander of the International Space Station welcoming 4 new crew members for her expedition on board here shortly. All right, so again, there's a series of steps here as we enter into an orbital nighttime, completing the docking of Crew Dragon Endeavour to the International Space Station for a second time. That contact and capture occurring at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern. We have a confirmed hard capture. The umbilical is in motion to connect the station to the Dragon and provide data and power and communication through that umbilical, so it no longer has to rely on its own systems. Everything's looking good for that vehicle. It's going to be some time again until we repressurize the vestibule and get those hatches open between the Dragon and the International Space Station. It'll be the crew inside the station getting that ready to be opened.
Endeavour SpaceX docking sequence is complete. Welcome to the ISS.
Thank you, SpaceX. Great to be here.
And some more official words, that docking is complete. The crew must be so excited to finally have arrived at the space station. Again, there is some more steps that they will need to complete and some checks before they can ingress on the space station. But the crew can now get out of their suits before moving into hatch operations. So now they can start to get comfortable again. They no longer need these suits now that they have arrived at the space station.
That's right. And so it'll be some time again until that area between the International Space Station and the hatches.
SpaceX Endeavour on Dragon to ground. Are you ready for us to begin seat doffing?
SpaceX copies. You are go to begin suit doffing and audio configuration. Procedure 4.012.
Copy, that's in work.
So again, it'll take some time. The crew will begin doffing or taking off their suits. It'll be some time to repressurize the vestibule. Station side, astronauts on the station side will configure the hatch, getting ready to open that up and welcome the crew inside the International Space Station. It was a pretty great docking. Everything happened right on cue and as expected. So it was a great to see Crew Dragon Endeavour dock to the International Space Station once again. We've enjoyed it from here in Mission Control Hawthorne, but to see how things turned out from the space station side of things as we work together to complete today's operation, let's go to Courtney Beasley for a refresher on what's ahead now that Dragon is docked.
SpaceX cameras are external.
Copy, thanks.
Thanks, Gary. It's great to see Dragon successfully docked to the International Space Station. Even through the face masks, you can see and feel the excitement in the room here in Mission Control Houston. Now that we're docked, Victor Glover is securing some hardware, and then he'll move right into hatch operations. First, he will open the large hatch at Node 2 forward, giving him access inside the pressurized mating adapter. Then he will have to pressurize the vestibule, which is the small space between the hatches on Dragon and the space station. This was exposed to vacuum prior to docking, and he will need to fill it with air and make sure its pressure is nearly equal with the atmospheric pressures on Dragon and the station. He will use a small valve on the station's hatch to slowly introduce air into the vestibule, and flight controllers here in Houston will monitor the pressure and temperature readings inside and verify that everything is leak-free before we get ready to open up the hatches. We expect it to take about 2 hours to get everything pressurized and checked out before we open hatches. With Dragon successfully docked to the International Space Station, that's the latest from here in Mission Control Houston. And back to the team over in Hawthorne.
All right, thanks, Courtney. As mentioned, it will take some time to go ahead and go through those procedures, but we'll stay with you throughout today's coverage. Of course, one of the major things will be repressurizing the vestibule in between the hatches. There's a hatch called the A-Pass hatch. That's the hatch on the International Space Station side. And then there's the Dragon hatch itself. In between is a vestibule that's currently at vacuum. So in order to travel through both hatches, you need to repressurize that. Now that there's a hard mate between the two vehicles, they'll check the seal. They'll do some leak checks as they're repressurizing the vestibule up to vacuum. And that will take some time.
SpaceX Endeavour, check on the cabin mic.
SpaceX has you loud and clear on the cabin mic.
Ready the same, thanks.
You're hearing the crew inside Endeavour go through their procedures. One of the first things they're ready to do is take off those suits. They had to wear it through several of the operations of a launch from the Kennedy Space Center to a docking with the International Space Station. Launch is a very dynamic activity, so they had suits on up until orbital insertion, and then they were able to doff their suits, have a meal, go to bed, check out some of the systems, wake up, and then right before they entered into the approach phase of today's flight with the approach initiation burn, they got their suits on and were able to pressurize them, and they held pressure throughout that sequence of today's flight until docking. Now they get to take it off. They get to stretch out, change into something a little bit more comfortable, but not too comfortable, of course, because they will be. We will have an event to welcome them on board the International Space Station We expect all 11 crew members to be there to welcome them. It's going to be pretty crowded, but it should be very exciting to see that many people on board the International Space Station.
And those call-outs that we just heard were they were doing a comm check with the Crew Dragon communications because they've now taken off their suits. They have comms through their suits, but since they're not going to be wearing their suits anymore, they need to use the comms through Dragon. So very exciting. It sounds like they're getting out of their suits as we speak, or doffing their suits. And then we will soon begin the process to open up those hatches so that the crew can finally ingress onto the space station. So it will take a little bit of time, but we will be here with you through every step of the way. If you're just now joining us, the Crew-2 crew has finally docked to the International Space Station after an approximately 23-hour ride from Earth to the station. Again, they are going to be performing a few procedures here before the Crew-2 can ingress onto the space station. They will be opening the APAS hatch, which is the space station side hatch, followed by the Dragon hatch. But this will take some time. They will need to repressurize the vestibule in between those two hatches before the crew can ingress.
That's right, the umbilical on the Dragon side has been fully extended to provide power, communications, and data from the International Space Station to the Dragon, so the Dragon no longer needing to rely on its own power systems. And of course, when the hatches are open, they'll be able to mix the air from the environment that's inside the space station with the Dragon, so it no longer needs to rely on its environmental control and life support systems. In the meantime, it is still doing so because the hatches are closed between both the Dragon and the International Space Station. There is a gap called the vestibule in between them that's currently at vacuum. That vestibule has been exposed to the vacuum of space on the forward end of the International Docking Adapter. So when bringing the pressure back up, there may be swings. Because of the temperature variation, there may be swings that need to dampen out before an effective leak check could take place. So the process of repressurizing the vestibule in between those two hatches does take quite a long time. It's expected to be about 2 hours until both of the hatches are open because of the length of time of repressuring that vestibule. Now from the station side, Victor Glover will outfit the 8-pass hatch. That's the one on the station side. He'll open it up and remove, once the vestibule is pressurized, he'll open that up and remove the docking target and install some padding onto the 8-pass hatch so that there's no unnecessary contact as astronauts are coming through the hatch from Crew Dragon to come inside of the forward end of the International Space Station.
Station Houston on 2 on the big loop. You are go to pick up in ingress part 1, step 1. Note that the pre-ingress ventilation in step 1.6 is not required.
Okay, picking up step 1 and 1.6 not required.
Dragon SpaceX, no response required, but ISS power connection has been established.
There you go. So Victor Glover on the International Space Station side already going through his procedures to get the hatches configured for ingress, essentially supporting the opening of the hatches, repressurizing in the vestibule. There's a lot to happen before we can open up the hatch and welcome the crew on the inside. The umbilical has been fully extended, and we just got confirmation that Dragon is drawing power from the International Space Station, so the solar arrays on the station providing power downstream to the Dragon. Dragon no longer needing to rely on its power. That officially confirmed. It will again take some time until the Dragon hatches are open. Our Dragon and Space Station hatches are open. And we've noticed for the past 2 times that Crew Dragons have docked to the station. The past 2 times being when Crew was aboard for Demo 2 and for CREW-1. We did notice that the crew inside Dragon took some time before to get themselves situated, make sure everything on the Dragon side was configured before they left it and entered into the International Space Station. We should see celebratory hugs from the crew on board as they make their way one at a time, as they'll be together for the next few days until they have to say farewell to the CREW-1 astronauts aboard the International Space Station. Shannon Walker handing over command of the International Space Station. Before she does that, she's going to hand command over to Aki Hoshide, who's currently on board CREW-2. He'll take the responsibility of International Space Station commander through the duration of Expedition 65 until he's ready to hand it off to the next crew. That all happening in the next couple of days.
Crew Dragon Endeavour is docked to the International Space Station as we speak. The crew on board the space station as well as CREW-2 are preparing for a couple procedures here for hatch opening. That is the hatch opening on the space station side as well as the Crew Dragon hatch. And this will take approximately an hour, a little over an hour and a half to walk through all of these procedures. So though CREW-2 is at
station on the big loop, no 2 forward hatches open.
And Ike, we copy, and you are go to continue through step 2, pressurizing vestibule.
Continue through step 2.
As I mentioned, they are walking through several procedures to get those 2 hatches open As you can hear, that communication between Victor Glover on board the station with the ground team helping him out with the procedures.
That first hatch that he mentioned is the Node 2 forward hatch. From inside the Node 2 segment of the International Space Station, there are 3 hatches to get from Node 2 all the way down to the Dragon itself.
Dragon SpaceX, if desired, reference procedure 4.400 for monitoring vestibule pressurization.
Copy 4.400 for the vestibule depress.
So now that Node 2 forward hatch is open, Victor Glover inside the pressurized mating adapter. Down the PMA is the A-pass hatch, the hatch that separates the International Space Station now from the Dragon. With the Node 2 forward hatch open, Victor Glover can work to manually pressurize the vestibule. And we just heard from here in Mission Control Hawthorne that the crew on board Dragon Endeavour will be able to monitor the vestibule pressurization on their displays from the side of the Crew Dragon. You're getting a live look at both of the flight control rooms.
On the big loop. A-pass, equalization valve closed at 0938.
Houston copies 0938.
So you're looking at both of the flight control rooms on the left. SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Flight controllers there successfully monitoring the navigation of Crew Dragon Endeavour that autonomously made its way from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida to the International Space Station, docking at 2:08 a.m. Pacific Time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern. With the International Space Station as they've been flying over the South Indian Ocean. The control teams are now working to configure Dragon for its stay aboard the International Space Station. They've hard mated it using 12 hooks that drive to connect it to the International Docking Adapter, and have connected an umbilical and confirmed that power is being drawn from the space station to the Dragon, Dragon no longer needing to rely on its power source during its stay. All right, if you're just joining us, you're getting a live view of both of the control rooms. On the left is SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, and on the right, Mission Control Houston with the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Crew Dragon Endeavour is officially docked to the International Space Station, and right now teams on both the station side and Dragon side are working to get ready to open up the hatches in between them. It's going to take some time until we get to that point where we're able to open up the hatches. Victor Glover on the station side is currently inside the pressurized mating adapter. He's working to manually pressurize the vestibule that exists between both of the hatches. It's going to take some time because that vestibule has been exposed to vacuum since before Crew Dragon just docked at 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 5:08 a.m. Eastern time, and because it has been exposed to vacuum, the thermal environment causes it to have a little bit of oscillation as the pressure is rising. So they need to have some thermal equalization in the vestibule before beginning the pressurization to ensure that the leak checks are accurate. So they'll do a leak check on the way up to pressure, which is a little more than 14 pounds per square inch. They'll do a pressure check at 5 pounds per square inch, make sure everything's good, that the vestibule is holding pressure, and then they'll continue on up to match the pressure between the International Space Station and the Crew Dragon. In the meantime, Victor Glover will open up the A-Pass hatch on the International Space Station side. That's the hatch that separates the vestibule from the Dragon hatch. He'll outfit the A-Pass hatch by taking off the docking target, which is a long rod with an X on it, and was used for some of the optical navigation equipment on the Crew Dragon for Dragon's approach and eventual docking to the station. He'll remove that, he'll put some pads on the A-Pass hatch, make sure no one bumps their head on the way in, and then when he heads into the vestibule, there is a little window. Hopefully he'll be able to wave to his crewmates before they actually open up the hatch of the Dragon itself. After both hatches are open, the crews on both sides will get positioned. Well, first the Crew 2 astronauts will just make sure everything is okay on the Endeavour side before they go ahead and officially leave that vehicle. Crew from inside Endeavour will enter or ingress into the International Space Station one at a time, being greeted by the 7 crew members that are currently aboard the International Space Station, including CREW-1 astronauts. You have Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker from NASA, and Soichi Noguchi from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Also on board, arriving on a Russian Soyuz in April, earlier this month, was Mark Vande Hei of NASA and Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov from Roscosmos.
Dragon SpaceX for audio configuration.
Go ahead for audio config.
Right, Shane, we are about to transition to hardline audio with ISS.
Copy.
All right, so you just heard the confirmation. The Dragon and International Space Station are mated now by not only the International Docking Adapter, but there is an umbilical that's extending to the space station. We did have confirmation that we have power that's being drawn from the space station to the Dragon side, so they're configuring some of the other channels, including communication. So they'll configure that one at a time. Some of the sequence of events that's going to happen over the next couple of hours until as we continue to repressurize the vestibule and get the station and Dragon outfitted to eventually open up the hatches. We'll be with you throughout the entire duration of this sequence until we have those hatches open and provide a live coverage of a welcome ceremony, show the inside of the space station and the crews of Dragon, both Resilience and Endeavour, and of course the MS-18 Soyuz vehicle that are all on board the International Space Station now as part of Expedition 65, welcoming each other officially aboard.
and Endeavour Houston on 2 on the big loop for hard line. We are ready for comm checks with SpaceX, ISS, and Houston.
All right, so it's a little hard to see from this view. It's a external camera view aboard the International Space Station. On the port truss, you can sort of see the nose cone flipped up, but that's Crew Dragon Endeavour on the forward end of the station. It's hard mated using 12 hooks that have driven to hard capture Crew Dragon Endeavour to the International Space Station. It's also connected by umbilical to the station. We've confirmed that power is being drawn from the station to Dragon. Dragon no longer needing to rely on its own internal systems for power. That umbilical also provides a communication line. Now coming up will be a test of that communication line between the teams, between the Dragon itself, Crew Dragon Endeavour, and the International Space Station, and the ground teams, making sure that that connection that we've been hearing throughout the approach and docking phase of today's flight on the big loop.
SpaceX Houston in station. This is Endeavour. Comm check.
And SpaceX has you loud and clear, Endeavour.
And Houston has you loud and clear.
And this space station has you loud and clear on hard line. We copy it all on hard line. Loud and clear.
All right, so the same control teams that we've been hearing through the approach and docking phase of the flight on the big loop. That includes the SpaceX flight controllers in Mission Control Hawthorne. The voice you're hearing is Core or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer Arthur Berrialt. He confirmed from here in Hawthorne. From Mission Control Houston, Capcom Kathy Bolt confirmed the hardline communication network is working on board the International Space Station. That was the voice of Victor Glover, who's currently working through the procedures for opening up the hatches, including the repressurization of the vestibule. Still awaiting some temperature equalization there before that begins. But that'll be some of his next steps. And then aboard Crew Dragon Endeavour, Commander Shane Kimbrough confirming that hardline communication is working. So we got good power and good communication through the umbilical line to the Dragon from the International Space Station. We'll continue to provide periodic updates throughout this sequence of repressurizing the vestibule and opening up the hatches, configuring the Dragon and the International Space Station as they are mated together in space.
It's Saturday, May 1st, here at SpaceX's headquarters. Good afternoon. It's Saturday, May 1st, here at SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. We are coming to you live as we await for Dragon Resilient spacecraft to depart from the International Space Station and make its way back to planet Earth. We do expect Dragon Resilience to push away from the space station at about 5:35 p.m. Pacific time with our Crew-1 astronauts, three from NASA, Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and from Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronauts Soichi Noguchi. My name is Andy Tran. I'm a production supervisor here at SpaceX. I'm very excited to be bringing you live coverage of the Crew Dragon completing its second trip to the space station with people on board as NASA's first official long-duration mission of our commercial crew program. Joining me today is NASA's Public Affairs Officer, Leah Cheshire. Leah, how are you doing today?
Hey, Andy. I'm doing awesome because you can't be anything else than that whenever you're excited about bringing some people home from space. So once Dragon departs station, the crew's flight home is expected to last roughly 6.5 hours and include 4 departure burns that move Dragon away from station and 1 final deorbit burn. Dragon is targeted to splash down off the coast of Panama City, Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico at 11:56 p.m. Pacific or 6:56 GMT, followed by the crew getting picked up at sea by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels.
Now, the crew have been up there for quite a while. The mission began on November 15th of last year.
Just a heads up, we saw something small, silver, float towards the airlock, bottom of the airlock behind you, from Soichi's suit. Towards the deck.
So what we heard was those beeps are Quindar tones, and that is the core or the crew operations resource engineer communicating to the astronauts.
So that was the Capcom, the capsule communicator in Houston, still communicating with the astronauts aboard the International Space Station as well as we get Crew-1 suited up and back into Crew Dragon.
And we'll try to pause to make sure that everyone can hear those communications. But
and Houston, copy. Joe, last. Which direction was it flying? Oh, I found it. Thank you.
Glad to be of help.
So this mission began
adapter between the two vehicles and close the forward hatch on node 2 of the space station.
SpaceX, this is Resilience.
At 4:10.
Dragon cabin configuration for departure is complete 2.10. However, Ike is still working on the polar lockers.
Copy. Thanks for the status.
Dragon Commander Mike Hopkins there reporting that they are making their way through the different tasks and check marks that they need before they are able to close the hatch. Continuing through the activities coming up at 4:10 p.m. Pacific or 6:10 Central, we'll have vestibule depressurization. Once all the hatches are closed, a ground command will be sent to open valves on Dragon and begin depressurizing the vestibule, essentially venting the air inside and bringing it down close to vacuum. They'll pause at about 5 pounds per square inch for a few minutes to allow temperatures inside the vestibule to stabilize before they finish that depressurization. And then at 5:20 p.m. Central, 7:20 p.m. Pacific, 7:20 Central, we'll listen for the go, no-go call for undocking. Teams here in Mission Control Houston and in MCCX in Hawthorne will do a joint call for undocking. Finally, at 5:35 p.m. Pacific, 7:35 Central, that will be the actual separation. An undocking command will be sent, followed by a few minutes for the umbilical that connects the power and data between the two spacecraft to detach, and for 12 hooks holding the Dragon in place to retract. Then 2 quick firings of the Dragon's thrusters will initiate separation, and undocking will be complete. NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough is going to watch the undocking and departure from the cupola, but the prime departure monitoring role falls on the crew. Mission Control Houston will back them up from the ground.
And SpaceX, this is
As you've heard several times, Dragon's flight is intended to be autonomous.
Dragon departure prep.
And resilience SpaceX, assuming that means bolt torquing is complete. You are go to complete LIO configuration, IMV teardown, and hatch closure per procedure 2.103. You can perform a LIO changeout to cartridge 2, and when complete, then execute your instructions in your hatch closed event details, followed by suit donning per procedure 4.010. How copy?
Okay, so we have a go. Pike is complete with the polar torquing, 2.103. LIO cartridge is 2, and once complete with all of that, we're go to close the hatch and get into the event details.
Good readback.
Mike Hopkins again, commander of the Dragon, talking with the team on the ground in Mission Control X in Hawthorne about the steps that are getting the Dragon ready for its departure today, and specifically the lithium hydroxide cartridge reconfiguration. They'll also be working on some teardown of ducts between the two vehicles, the Dragon and the International Space Station, all leading up to that hatch closure that we're watching for. Here on the space station side of the activities, we're looking good. Solar arrays are locked in place, and we have good communication links. Attitude is going to remain on the United States thruster control until the time of undocking, when we'll switch to use control moment gyroscopes only. We're tracking no issues for an on-time departure. And as we get ready for that final ingress, I'll throw it back to Leah and Andy in Hawthorne.
Thanks so much, Brandy. And we heard several calls there, and one being that they were go for hatch closure. You can see NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough continuing to do some work around the hatches and in that vestibule area. And we should probably mention that just before we came on air today, we heard that the weather is go in the most recent weather briefing that comes about 2.5 hours prior to undocking. So everything continues to move on the timeline here. And then there in the center of your screen, you've also got NASA astronaut Megan MacArthur. She arrived with the crew members a week ago on Crew-2. Let's learn a little bit more about our astronauts that are departing today. We've got Crew Dragon Commander Mike Hopkins, who was born in Lebanon, Missouri, but grew up outside Richland, Missouri. He was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 2009. He's a colonel in the United States Air Force and holds degrees in aerospace engineering. Hopkins flew on the Russian Soyuz as a member of the Expedition 3738 crew, logging 166 days in space. He performed 2 spacewalks totaling almost 13 hours to change out a degraded pump module on the space station. And his military experience includes testing C-17 and C-130 aircraft. During this mission, he also completed 2 more spacewalks, bringing his total to 4.
Next up is pilot Victor Glover. He's a native of Pomona, California. He was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 2013. Glover is a commander in the United States Navy, holds degrees in general engineering, flight test engineering, systems engineering.
For the LIO changeout.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to verify that when we take LIO 2 out of the bag and install it, we then put LIO 1 in the stowage location but outside of the bag, and that just the bag goes to Endeavour. Is that correct?
That is all correct.
And again, that was Commander Mike Hopkins getting some clarification on some LIO checkouts. On screen is Thomas Pesquet talking, who is off screen with Akio Shide. So Glover, the pilot, as I was mentioning, he holds degrees in general engineering, flight test engineering, systems engineering, and military operational art and science. He has extensive military test flight experience, was a test pilot for the FA-18 Hornet, the Super Hornet, and EA-18G Growler. He has accumulated 3,000 flight hours in more than 40 aircraft, over 400 carrier arrest landings, and 24 combat missions. This was actually his first space flight, and also a fun fact, yesterday was his birthday, so he gets an exciting birthday weekend. He gets to spend part of it in space and also the other part back on Earth.
What more could you ask for? Happy belated birthday, Victor Glover. His crew member, mission specialist Shannon Walker, is from Houston, Texas. She was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 2004 and is a doctor of philosophy in space physics. Walker flew on the Russian Soyuz as a flight engineer for Expedition 2425 aboard the International Space Station in space for 163 days. During that mission, she was the robotics operator supporting 3 contingency spacewalks to remove and replace a failed pump module specifically on the space station. Shannon is also one of only a few dozen people to be both an astronaut and an aquanaut, having spent 13 days underwater during NASA's Extreme Environments Mission Operations 15, aptly called NEMO 15. During the mission, she lived inside the world's only research station, Aquarius, which sits at 60 feet beneath the ocean surface and just down the road off the coast of Key Largo.
And last but certainly not least, mission specialist Soichi Noguchi is from Yokohama, Kanagawa, Japan. We saw him donned in his spacesuit and enter the Dragon vehicle just earlier. He was selected as an astronaut by Japan in 1996, has degrees in aeronautical engineering, and is a doctor of philosophy in advanced interdisciplinary studies. Noguchi has logged a total of 177 days in space, having flown on the STS-114 on the Space Shuttle Discovery and on the Russian Soyuz as a member of the Expedition 22-23 crew. And while on STS-114, he became the first Japanese astronaut to perform spacewalks on the International Space Station, completing 3 spacewalks totaling 20 hours. He's also one of very few people that have flown on 3 different spacecrafts, the Shuttle, Soyuz, and now Dragon.
Brazilian flyout swap out occurred at 10:25.
Copy 10:25, thanks.
Soichi Noguchi, as you mentioned, logging 177 hours on his previous space flight, and this time he comes home. All 4 of these astronauts come home, having added 168 extra days in space.
Dragon SpaceX for LIO time clarification.
Nope.
Hey, we copied 10:25 for that LIO time, but it is currently 10:22. Can you confirm we copied correctly?
Yeah, so my iPad's got a little fast on it, so 10:22 works.
Copy 10:22.
Crew discussing those lithium hydroxide canisters being switched out. So we mentioned they're coming home with 168 days in space, these 4 crew members, and once they splash down, they will be breaking a record from the set by the final Skylab crew of 84 days, 1 hour, and 15 minutes in space by an American crewed spacecraft, and that was in February 1974. So just another first for Crew 1.
The crew is continuing to ingress the Dragon. The next major event coming up as they continue to do checkouts is Dragon hatch closure, followed by the APAS hatch closure on the space station side.
And we heard that Shannon Walker and Soichi Noguchi, we saw they were already in their suits prior to ingressing Crew Dragon. So they were able to get in their seats and plug in those umbilicals, which are part of the suits that allow for communications, data, and air as well to flow into the suit. Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover, you can see Inside the capsule, getting our first look of the day inside Crew Dragon Resilience. Victor Glover there at the top of your screen. He and Hopkins will suit up shortly. Looks like they might be getting some final pictures.
The hands that you see closest to your screen, that is from astronaut Shannon Walker. Again, the mission specialists donned their suits before ingressing. Commander Mike Hopkins and pilot Victor Glover will don their suits after hatch closure.
And it looks like they were just doing just that, closing that forward hatch.
So what Mike and Victor are wearing are essentially comfort garments. It's like athletic wear that they will wear underneath their suit. There's actually two hatches. The forward hatch that Leah had mentioned that they are currently working to close. There is also a side hatch that later on after splashdown, that's where they will egress from, and that's the same hatch that they used to ingress when they were launching back in November last year.
The view on your left from the International Space Station side of the operation. Not only does that Dragon hatch have to be closed, the A-Pass hatch has to be closed as well. Crew member Shane Kimbrough will be...
SpaceX from Resilience, hatch is closed.
Copy, hatch closed.
And SpaceX from Resilience, you do have a good comm check with suited subjects, so we're going to go ahead and unplug the cabin mic.
Copy, sounds good. And for your awareness, we do plan to do a short nitrox injection following hatch closure to slightly bump cabin pressure.
Resilience copies.
That hatch closure call coming at 3:25 p.m. Pacific time as the International Space Station was flying 269 statute miles over the South Pacific Ocean.
We also heard the call that they have good comms in their suits. Again, as Leah mentioned, there's an umbilical on the right thigh of the suit that will give the suit all the avionics and electronics they need, including the comms. It also provides air and gases. Later on, as you know, the Dragon's capsule re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it gets exceedingly hot, and so there is nitrox purge through the suit to keep the astronauts nice and cool. And nitrox is essentially a combination of nitrogen and oxygen, very similar to the breathable air that we have here on Earth.
We were talking a little bit about those comfort garments. They serve another purpose as well. If you're familiar with compression socks, it's sort of a similar thing. They're orthostatic garments that these help the crew. They're sort of compression pants and squeeze their legs. That helps force the fluid from their legs up toward the upper part of their body when they come back to gravity. Helps everybody feel a little bit better after spending 6 months in space.
Yeah. And it looks like we do have some satellite handoffs. That is to be expected. They're part of the tracking data and relay satellites that are stationed, I believe, in geostationary orbit, 22,000 miles above the Earth's surface. And so we expect them. We should get communications and video back here shortly. That is a view of mission control in Hawthorne, just to my left, as the team here continues to support Dragon departure and docking and eventually splashdown later on tonight.
Yeah, we should expect to get that communications back in just under 2 minutes now. But as you mentioned, you've got SpaceX Hawthorne there, and we heard from Brandy Dean earlier in Mission Control Houston. The teams are still in joint operations, meaning they're working together, ensuring the safety and the proper execution of everything that happens today. And that'll occur until the vehicle Crew Dragon is outside of the approach ellipsoid. At that point, the International Space Station teams will continue monitoring the International Space Station as they do 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And teams here in Hawthorne will be focused on Crew Dragon itself.
So this CREW-1 team, they launched in November 15th of last year. It took them about 27 hours to get from Earth to the International Space Station and dock and open that hatch. Today is going to be a little different. After we undock, it'll take about 6.5 hours from the International Space Station to deorbit, re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, and eventually splash down in Panama City, off the coast of Panama City, in Florida. So quite a bit of difference there. The return duration can take anywhere from 6 to upwards of 30 plus hours. There's a lot of things that go into, the time of return, the duration of the return, but it's all for the comfort and safety of the astronauts. So yeah, today it's going to be a nice short one for the astronauts. They don't have to wait too long in the resilient space capsule.
Pretty impressive, if you ask me. You can't really drive across the state of Texas in 7 hours, but you can make it from the International Space Station back down to Earth. And some of those factors that we were discussing that play into the length of a return can be, a lot of times we see crew sleep. We want to make sure that the crew are rested and able to monitor the vehicle as it returns. And of course, Crew Dragon is fully autonomous, but we want to just allow them to keep an eye on it and not get too tired as they step through those procedures. So that definitely played in their favor today.
So next up is for, now that the Dragon hatch is closed, the commander, Mike Hopkins, and the pilot, Victor Glover, will don their spacesuits. So a little bit more about the suits themselves. They are custom-made one-piece suits. The gloves, the boots, the helmets are all integrated into the suit. So effectively, it's like a onesie. You kind of get in, and everything just zips up. And then the umbilical that I mentioned earlier will pressurize it and give all of the electronics that they need for the suit to be able to communicate from space to ground. The helmet itself is 3D printed nylon, and the outside of it is made up of a few different materials. The gray material is Nomex, which is related to nylon, just a little bit different. It has some additional properties that the astronauts definitely would enjoy. It includes a sort of temperature resistance and radiation resistance and chemical resistance as well. And the white part is Teflon, I believe. But each of the suits are custom made to each of the astronauts. And as we continue to get crew ready to depart the space station, we are now joined by NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager, Steve Stitch from Houston. Steve, thanks for popping in, and we're hoping you could give us some insight to the steps NASA and SpaceX have taken to get ready for tonight's return.
Okay, hey, thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's pretty exciting to watch the crew getting ready to undock here in just a little bit under 2 hours. We've spent a lot of time over the last week or so getting ready to come home. One of the big factors has been weather and trying to find the right circumstances and situation to bring the crew home. So what we typically do is we start looking at weather. We were originally going to undock and land on Wednesday, and so around Monday we started looking at the trends in the weather and evaluating all the different sites and trying to find the best option to come home. And so it's taken a little while to find that optimal weather. Really what we're looking for is winds under about 6 to 8 miles per hour in that range. And so we've been looking at the sites over the last few days, and it turns out that the best site over the last 3 days or so has been this Panama City site. And so that's really one of the things we've been doing. I can tell you a little bit more details about the, yeah.
Sorry, so there was a change. Now we're targeting a night landing, which will be another first for Dragon with Crew. So how have the teams sort of changed and anticipated in order to make sure that this night landing goes successfully?
Yeah, well, first of all, the vehicle is certified to land in day or night. There's really not an issue with the vehicle itself. And recovery, we have been practicing to recover the crews in day or night. We knew that when you look at kind of how we've set up the program, we have crew rotation missions in April and October, and we pick those months for weather. And so in either of those months, we can have both daylight or night opportunities. And so they've been practicing recently on the last cargo mission. In fact, the CRS-21 mission, which landed in January, that was a night landing, and the SpaceX team recovered that vehicle, and the Crew Dragon and Cargo Dragon are very much identical. So we've been getting ready for this opportunity. And the primary switch was really for the weather. Right now the weather forecast for this particular landing is winds on the order of about 3 miles per hour, and the sea states are about 1 foot. So I got some pictures today from the ship and the recovery ship, and the water looks just like glass. And so when we were looking at opportunities, and we debated this switch tonight very carefully, one of the big considerations was the weather was so good and so benign. So we're putting the crew and the vehicle down in very benign winds and very benign waves, and so that's best for the crew and best for the vehicle. And then when we looked at the night opportunity, it turns out that we'll have quite a bit of moonlight. We'll have a few high clouds, maybe around 22,000 feet, but they'll be very thin, and so we'll have a good moonlight out in that area as well. And then, the ships have lots of lighting and lots of night capability, and so the fast boats from the SpaceX Go Navigator ship will go out, and they'll be at the capsule in about 10 minutes after splashdown. So when we weighed all those options, it just looked like this was the best time to come home, the best opportunity. When we looked at the winds for most of the week at these daytime opportunities, the winds were pretty high. And so, after we talked about it for several days, we convinced ourselves, hey, the right thing to do is bring the crew home. In this night opportunity, the vehicle and the recovery team are certified to go do that operation. We talked it over carefully with the SpaceX recovery team, and they're ready to go. And in fact, the ship's out there on position right now, ready for the recovery.
Well, thanks so much for the time, Steve. Do you have any final thoughts before we let you get back to the operations?
No, I would just say we're excited about the return. Entry is always a nervous time for me and others at NASA. I'm really excited for the landing. I'm very proud of the teams that worked so hard on this mission for all these months while the crew was on station and preparing for that mission. If you just step back and think about this month of April now heading into May, it's been very busy for commercial crew. We had a port relocate of this vehicle early in the month on April the 5th, a launch not very many days ago now, just a little over a week ago on April the 23rd, and then now this return and landing for the CREW-1 vehicle and crew. And it's just an exciting time. I can't thank the teams enough for all their hard work at SpaceX, at NASA, across the country. It's a very big team effort, not only between NASA and SpaceX, but the FAA is involved in clearing the airspace for the landing. The Coast Guard's involved in making sure we have notice to mariners and boats out and also patrolling the area. The Federal Communication Commission looking at the reentry and the communications. And then finally, the Department of Defense, Detachment 3, in the event of a contingency, they're available to go do a worldwide rescue of the crew. And so we have a great team. We're ready to go, and we're well practiced. And so we're looking forward to landing this morning.
Again, that was Steve Stitch, NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager, giving us some additional details on the road to CREW-1's departure this evening. It is excellent news that although it is a nighttime splashdown, the sea states are pretty much ideal conditions with very little winds and very small waves. Now that Dragon's hatch is closed, the crew is preparing to depart. We're going to take a short break before we get ready for undocking. Our live coverage will
stay live with you the entire time until Dragon's 1 splashes down off the coast of Florida on target for Saturday, May 1st at 11:57 p.m. Pacific time or 6:56 GMT on Sunday. So don't go anywhere. We will see you soon as Crew-1 gets ready to depart the International Space Station.
No, I installed it not too long ago, so I assume it was done by procedure correctly, but we'll see.